We're more than half a year away from the registration deadline to vote in next year's statewide election.
But First Alert 6 John Chapman tells us people across Nebraska are already getting offers from an out-of-state source to register.
Nebraska voters have received these offers of help to register to vote before. Information sent to your mailbox from the Center for Voter Information.
They're a nonprofit organization. They're registered as a nonprofit, 501c3 in Washington, D.C. And this is not unique to Nebraska. We know that they've sent these in other states.
On their website, the Center for Voter Information states they are nonprofit, nonpartisan, and together with the Voter Participation Center, registered more than 1.5 million voters during the 2020 election. Douglas County Election Commissioner Brian Cruz tells us registered voters in the state really don't need to deal with this mailing.
If you are registered to vote and haven't changed anything, you don't need to do anything. You can discard this mailing.
The mailing makes the statement that someone at this address might not be registered to vote. First Alert 6 knows the people who received this mailing have been registered to vote for years. Cruz says the Nebraska Secretary of State's office and other election offices have made attempts to work with the organization in the past.
To help them have a list that is so-called clean or accurate to whom they send their mailings to. We are never sure on their end what list they use to mail or not mail, but clearly there are some inconsistencies in the list they are using. There's no question about that.
Cruz says his office has received a lot of phone calls from people confused about the mailing and has made extra work for the Douglas County staff.
Because voters will just send this in, we still have to process those, and that's what we call a duplicate registration. So that still has to be touched by hands here in our office, which is a cost to the taxpayers, obviously.
Cruz says not only can the mailing confuse voters, it can also help create doubt about the system.
While it is an official voter registration application from the state of Nebraska, it is returned to our office. That's obviously not official correspondence from our office. So yes, in the political climate we live in, people do become suspicious, I would say.
In Omaha, I'm John Chapman, First Alert 6.
John, thanks for bringing that to our attention. Now, if you have any questions about voter registration in Douglas County, call the Election Commission office at 402-444-VOTE, or you can go to votedouglascounty-ne.gov.